Hello, good evening, and welcome to the War Room. This is day 21 of Russia's illegal incursion into Ukraine. And I am slowly fixing my Discord situation, so sorry about that. You probably noticed that. Man, I thought I got everything right up until I hit the button. Anyway, there's a couple of things I want to cover. I'm sorry if this ends up being a bit ranty, but that's why you're here, right? Because I'm unfiltered and uncensored, and I'm going to show you things that are going to make you vomit today. Because today is horrible in terms of news. But if you notice the scroller at the bottom, that has been updated dramatically. The number of soldiers KIA, the number of APCs, the number of tanks, the number of vehicles. Boy did the Ukrainians catch up today. Let me tell you something. Especially based on the number of really crappy stories today, actually, in terms of diplomacy. I woke up this morning knowing full well that Ukrainian President Volodomyrr Zelenskyy was going to follow up his speech with the Canadian Parliament with an address with a joint session of Congress today, both the House and Senate. And we played the Zelenskyy speech drinking game for the last 2 days, where I had challenged people to email me or PM me what they thought they were going to hear during his speech. And if a certain phrase was said, you would get credit for calling it out. And if you were really an alcoholic, I guess you would take a shot. But he did it at 9 a.m. Eastern, 9 a.m. Eastern time today. So even I don't drink that early. At least not unintentionally. But I would like to say that every single one of you who sent in an entry of what you thought he was going to say, you're all winners because he said all of it. And if you saw my Pwnery's breaking news episode today that came out about an hour or two ago, what you saw in there you're going to see here. So there's going to be a bit of the show today that is a repeat of what I made a very separate video for, because in all honesty, there are very few moments in history, where you get to bear witness to something you know will be in the history books. And today was no exception. I think the speech given by Volodymyr Zelenskyy today to Congress was history. That was one of the best speeches of my lifetime. I'm 42 years old, at least for another 27 days. That was absolutely one of the greatest speeches of my lifetime. And I think that if you haven't seen it, you're going to see it tonight. And I think you should definitely listen to it very carefully, because it's going to leave that impression on you. If you have any common sense and any heart and dignity and patriotism and anything like that, what you're going to see tonight may change your life. It did for me. I watched it this morning. I heard at the very end of his speech, he talked about his age, and he's a year older than I am. And at the end of that speech, I sat there and thought, what the hell have I been doing with my life compared to this guy? That's how much of an impact it had on me, which is why I'm going to take what I'm doing here a lot more seriously. But I'm still going to rant. I'm still going to be unfiltered, which is probably not going to be very popular because I use profanity like a comma. If you know who I work with, if you're part of my lobby chat for working stiffs throughout the week, you know exactly what I'm talking about. So there's that. In any event, today was a very, very big day on the timeline of what happened today in Ukraine. And I want to address something as I greet you, the audience, and you, the panelists, that I will bring into the show today. That I'm very grateful that you're listening. I've got comments today from people that I've known for several years that I've always considered them cohorts. I didn't know they were friends, but they have said things to me today which I found very touching. Like, for instance, I don't have time to catch the news, and I work a certain shift, and I'm very grateful for the fact that you've been presenting this to us in a easily digestible form, and it's the only reason I know what's going on, because you've presented it to us. I'm trying very hard to keep the human interest stories out. I'm just trying to keep it to the timeline facts. So, there's that. Anyway, it's really touching to get comments like that, usually in the form of private messages, so I won't call them out by name, but I'm very grateful, so thank you very much. So, with that being said, we've got a lot to cover, because today was a Herculean day in terms of ebbs and flows, in the sense of positivity and war and everything. And unfortunately, I have very few panelists today, because there is an event going on starting tomorrow that Palmetto State Armory is having called The Gathering, and my local IT guy from the state of South Carolina decided he was going to go to bed early to be able to make the trip, because apparently he forgot that I had a 22.5-hour day the day I met him at Wanamaker, where I woke up at 1 o'clock in the morning, packed my car, left Houston at 2 a.m., drove straight to Tulsa, Oklahoma, which was over a 10-hour drive, in weather that started off 80 degrees when I left Houston and was 21 degrees by the time I crossed the border into Oklahoma. Did the whole show, bought a rifle, hung out with everybody, had lunch, turned around, and drove all the way back to Houston in the same day that I left. I got home minutes before midnight. Apparently he can't do that, and he's almost 10 years younger than me. I guess I'm made out of better stock. Anyway, he's going to the PSA event tomorrow, and he's going to tell me if I should hold out and wait for an RPK build, or if I should just go ahead and buy myself a Polish AK, which I'm definitely considering doing. So with that all aside, let me go ahead and bring in my panelists. I'm just going to drag them in both at the same time. So today I've got my tradesman in the New England area, Scott, and I've got Desert Deagleton. So let me just go ahead and drag them in here one at a time. Bang. So they're both here. So good evening to both of you. We got a lot to cover, so I'm just not going to fuck around with individual intros. Cool?
Fine.
Excellent. Let's go ahead and get started. I have a video for you guys here in my panel. I will tell you when I'm about to get to that, so that way you have time to mute yourself, jump onto the YouTube side, and watch it, because if you haven't seen it, you're doing yourself a disservice. And for those of you in the audience, if you haven't seen it, I will give it to you in its entirety. It's about 16 or 17 minutes long. It is not something you want to avoid. You need to see this. One of the things that drive me crazy, and unfortunately I have one story where I have to show it to you, is censored photos. I don't believe in blurring out the photos. I think that just because you want to ignore it or avoid it doesn't make the problem go away. So I'm going to show it to you in raw, uncensored form. If you find it offensive, I suggest you grow thicker skin and grow the fuck up, because the world is ugly and you need to see it, because it's never going away. But if you want to see it, it's here. So you'll see it and you'll say, yeah, it's pretty fucked up. Regardless, one story I could only get a blurred photo. I'm sorry. I tried desperately to find an uncensored photo, but then again, it might have got me banned from YouTube, so maybe they did me a favor. But at least for the video that I'm going to present to you later today, I'm pretty sure that's okay. It's public domain. So let's go ahead and get started. Good evening to the finest of apes, and Terry Scherer, and Shady Hill, and I'm sure we're going to see most people jump in later, like the outlaw Hatfield, because he's always fashionably late, as most Hatfields are, which is why he lost the feud. Did I just say that out loud? I think I did.
Yep.
Anyway, let's go ahead and get started. Let's try to keep this under 2 hours, because apparently Pwnery didn't have time to eat dinner tonight, and he's going to be grumpy by the end of this. So let's get started. We're going to pick up right where we left off yesterday, which was Vice President Kneepads deleted her tweets because apparently she doesn't know a fucking thing about diplomacy. And she was saying that she was protecting the Ukraine and their NATO interests. They're not a NATO nation, you stupid cow. Moving on to today's story, which literally popped up 10 minutes after her story of her deleting tweets and probably trying to put bandages on her battered, chapped asshole from the social media rape she took afterwards. So it is 12:15 a.m. Central Standard Time for me, and it would have been 7:15 a.m. Ukrainian time. So it is dawn, and everyone is beginning to start to take stock of the disgust of the Russian attacks of the night before. So I do have a photo for you. Bing! And it's just a tweet for now. But anyway, Ukrainian officials said that negotiations with Russia to end the war were, quote, very difficult, as they are fundamental contradictions. But they said they would continue. Mikhailo Podolyak, an advisor to President Volodomyrr Zelenskyy, added, there is certainly room for compromise. We will continue tomorrow. A very difficult and viscous negotiation process. There are fundamental contradictions, but there is plenty of room for compromise. This guy, Mikhailo Podolyak, you're going to see his name a lot today. He's basically the mouthpiece for diplomacy for the nation of Ukraine. He's the Ukrainian version of Sergei Lapdog for Russia. I'm going to keep calling him that because I don't respect him. Sergei Lavrov is a piece of shit. He is Sergei Lapdog. Oh, Pink is in the chat today, so yeah, cool. You get to listen in. Awesome. Thank you. All right, so we're going to get through these pretty quickly. I've got a couple of rants I got to get in. I'm sorry. I'm sure you're going to agree with it, otherwise you wouldn't be here. So let's move on. About an hour later, it's now 8:16 a.m. Ukrainian local time, and I have another picture for you, actually. I was really good about this. I did all the show prep on time today. Humanitarian cargo weighing 15 tons has arrived in Ukraine, including baby food from Italy, canned soups from Germany, sewing materials and medicines from the great US of A. In times of difficult trials, each of us must do our best for our joint victory. And now it is very important to provide assistance to the civilian population, because people will understand that they will not be left in trouble and will always be remembered. This came from Lieutenant General Sergei Naev. Now, that's a little bit of a translation up there. I kind of read it out verbatim. My Russian is a little rusty, so you'll have to bear with me. But there are photos of the supply drop that I'm sharing with you. And I believe that this is the first time in 21 days that I was able to share this with you. It finally got there. I'm sure the aid had been coming in, but this is the first time I can remember in 21 days that it actually made the stories, because I didn't have a source for it before. I have confirmation for the first time, which is cool. Like, they finally got their stuff. And they're about to get a whole lot more, as you're about to see. So let's move on. Pwnery got a couple hours of sleep last night. About 3 hours of sleep last night. And it is now 4:19 my time. The dogs aren't awake yet. You probably, well, off air you probably heard them. Probably heard me screaming at them. It is now 11:19 a.m. Ukrainian time, so we're starting to plan lunch. And I want to say that this was the story of the day, just because of its length. But every story today is the story of the day because of its gravity. the weight of what happened today is immense. So anyway, this guy's name is Christo Grozev. You probably remember him from a few days ago. He is a investigative journalist. If you're from Houston, he's basically the Wayne Dolcefino of the world. Anyway, he basically put out this hit piece today based on his investigative journalism. So I'm going to share it with you. You'll have to go back a couple of episodes to see me mention him before, but this guy's legit. Russia's invasion of Ukraine upended Chinese President Xi Jinping's timetable to invade Taiwan, according to documents purportedly written by a Russian intelligence analyst in one of Moscow's security agencies. Xi Jinping was at least considering taking over Taiwan in the fall. He needs his own little victory to get reelected for a third term. There, the struggle within the successor agency to the KGB, known as the FSB today. This was written on March 9th. So basically what this guy was doing is he was poking and prodding, trying to find intel, and now he's presenting his findings to you today. The thing that I find kind of strange about what he's saying here, though, is Xi Jinping has declared himself president for life. So there isn't really a third term unless President for life is always available to be upended by a special election. So maybe that's what he thought he was facing. China will hold its 20th Communist Party Congress this fall. And Xi said it will be a major event. Analysts have predicted that Xi will either be re-elected as the General Secretary of the Communist Party or be elected to the chairmanship of the party, a position that has not existed since 1982. So what he's trying to do is the same thing that Vladimir Putin did. He's trying to stack up the titles to give himself absolute authority. Now, after the Ukrainian events, this window of opportunity has been closed to him, which gives the United States the opportunity to both blackmail Xi and negotiate with its competitors on favorable terms. This came from the FSB agent's report. It was in this case that we launched a trap mechanism for China with our actions. The Russians were planning to bump up the timetable for their invasion of Ukraine to force China's hand geopolitically to see where their intentions truly were when their true colors showed when Russians jumped the gun. That's essentially what this is. The agent added that the FSB is seriously considering claiming that the battle on Ukrainian territory is actually a U.S. proxy war against China, in which Americans simply set us up and used us. This is the excuse that they're trying to put together. Are you buying this shit? Because I don't think anyone is. The global clash between the U.S. and China was inevitable, the agent wrote. After the war with Ukraine, although I may avoid using the term operation here, the cost of resources in the world, especially energy ones, have gone through the roof. The main victim of such actions becomes China, to which I can confirm we're given guarantees that everything will end quickly. Now remember, Kyiv was supposed to fall in 3 days. Today's day 21, 7 times beyond the estimate. The main victim of such actions become China, to which I can confirm we're given... Oh, sorry, I read that. Therefore, China behaved tolerant in the past. But that was before that. China may well give us a tough ultimatum to end the war to stabilize oil prices. Now remember, this is the FSB guy in Russia saying this. So he's saying China behaved tolerant, but that was before all of this, and they may well give us a tough ultimatum to end the war to stabilize energy prices. If this happens, I don't want to predict anything. It's just on the horizon of disaster events. Vladimir Osechkin, founder of Gulagu.net, funny how it has the word gulag in it, human rights group, published the report on his Facebook page last week. He claimed that the same FSB agent wrote this document on the 5th of March to 2 of his fellow FSB contacts, one current and one former employee. They had no doubt that the author was absolutely a colleague. As Russian tanks rolled into Ukraine, 9 Chinese aircraft entered Taiwan's air defense zone, prompting a broadcast warning from the island nation. China may emerge as the primary beneficiary of the Russia-Ukraine war. This came from Steve Gray, who is a New Jersey congressional candidate, and he's a former FBI special agent who worked in both China and North Korea. Gray warned that China, quote, has been given a case study of what the world's response would look like if they were to invade Taiwan. That makes sense, right? Like, all the math checks out. Xi Jinping is using China as a pawn. Everyone thought China was the boogeyman. Everyone in the world thought Russia was the boogeyman. When the whole time, China was using Russia like a bitch to make them look like the boogeyman, to see what the world's reaction would be in the form of sanctions and military action. Xi Jinping has made Vladimir Putin his bitch. The whole world was afraid of the Russian boogeyman from the Cold War 1961. But his military is inept. His air force is cowardly by only attacking at night. And he can't take a city over 7 times longer than his estimate. And now China got a first-person view of what the world would do to a belligerent nation. Do you think China wants that smoke right now? Because it doesn't look like it. That's why I said it was the story of the day, because it was actually the biggest story of the day. I thought it was fascinating. I thought the theory was fascinating. Look at that. Tony was able to stay up long enough to make the show. If you want to be part of the panel, Tony, I'll bring you in. Just go into the green room. I'll drag you in. I'd love to hear what you think about all this. No, really. I'm serious. Anyway. So let's move on. And we are now, 2 hours? About 2 hours later. It's actually post-lunchtime. 1:24 p.m. Ukrainian time. And this is kind of weird. The British Prime Minister Boris Johnson said today that the Ukraine won't become a member of NATO anytime soon. The remark comes a day after the Ukrainian President Volodomyrr Zelenskyy said that he knows his country does not have an open door to NATO membership and should instead find ways to protect itself with the help of security guarantees. So, yesterday, we talked about this. We said, Zelenskyy is starting to see the wood for the trees. He thought joining NATO would be the saving grace of his fledgling nation. NATO promised him, back in 2014, hey bro, if you disarm your nuclear weapons, we will protect you in the future should anything happen. The same year, President Barack Obama turned a blind eye to the fact that Russia took over Crimea, which is the splash screen of today that you're looking at. Fast forward to today, and you've had 21 days of a world leader begging for the help from the very organization he has applied to join that has still not admitted him 8 years later, and he's not getting what he wants. You almost get the impression that he's starting to think, why would I want to join this group who lied to me and left me vulnerable to my enemy? Because now he doesn't have a nuclear button. But he was promised help. Here's some thoughts and prayers. And a couple of helmets. Every day he's asked for the same thing. Every day he's told the same thing. No. Every day his people are dying, and every day his government and those people are starting to resent us. And now he's got Boris Johnson, who is a fellow halfie, mind you. He's half American and half British, but he's also the Prime Minister of the UK. And now he's saying the same thing. And he's a NATO nation as well. So now you have two of the biggest NATO nations on the board saying, yeah, you're not going to get it anytime soon. Sorry we disarmed you, bro. Here's some helmets. The fuck? Why would you want to join that? You've been left vulnerable, and now that enemy is in your yard. Yeah, they're sending you javelins and things like that. Let's be honest. They're doing something. But it ain't enough, is it? Otherwise he wouldn't be asking for more. They're not. He gave up his trump card in a token of good faith to join the club that he thought was a bunch of bros that look after one another. And now those bros are like, I don't know what you're talking about, dude. It's been 8 years and you're still not in. We don't owe you anything. Why would you want to join that? After every concession you've made, even after you let Crimea get taken from you, you still want to join it. And they're like, sorry, bro, can't do your no-fly zone. What good is that group then? We'll get to that in a minute. So, he says that he won't be in NATO anytime soon. The remark comes a day after Ukrainian President Volodomyrr Zelenskyy says he knows his country does not have an open door to NATO membership and should instead find ways to protect itself. Because he knows. He's like, I'm on my own. Johnson said the reality of the position is that there is no way Ukraine is going to join NATO anytime soon. They've been trying for 8 years. How much longer do they need to keep trying? Who honestly, who wants to join this shit? Let's move on. This is a story that's going to make Scott really happy. So let me give you the picture. There you go. That's my epic work, my MS Paint work there for you. 1:39 p.m. Ukrainian local time. Russian Major General Oleg Mitayev, who commanded the 150th Motorized Rifle Division and had fought in Syria. So this piece of shit was part of the people who used chemical weapons on the people of Aleppo. Why is there a dog in my room? Why are there 2 dogs in my room? Anyway. He has been killed in Ukraine, according to Interior Ministry advisor Anton Gerashenko. Gerashenko published a photo on Telegram of what he said was the 46-year-old dead officer. He's the guy on the far right, claiming he was killed Tuesday in the area of Mariupol. Ukrainian President Volodomyrr Zelenskyy reported the death of another Russian general in his nighttime address Tuesday, last night, but didn't name him. But now we are. His name is Major General Oleg Wormfood Mitayev, and he's now dead. And if I were to quote retired General Jack Keane, nothing boosts the morale of an infantry faster than the death of your enemy's generals. See you, bro? That's 4 of them. How many more you got left? Let's move on. A little over an hour later, and this is pretty shitty. The Ukrainian city of Zaporizhzhia, where people fleeing Mariupol have been taking refuge. So there's the map there, Mariupol, far left. Zaporizhzhia is not even on this action map today. Actually, they didn't even put the local symbol anymore. It's between Mariupol and Melitopol. Sorry. I don't know why there's a bunch of puppies in my room all of a sudden. Anyway, it came under fire Wednesday by the Russian military. Civilian objects have been bombed for the first time in Zaporizhzhia. This came from Regional Governor Alexander Starkov. Staruk, sorry, my Russian's rusty, reportedly wrote on Telegram. The rockets landed in an area of Zaporizhzhia 2 railway station. Now, the reason I didn't post a picture was because the only photos I could have of the railway station is immaculate before it got attacked. And there were no immediate reports of casualties, so I can't report any of that to you. But the report that it came under fire, that's one thing. So maybe tomorrow I'll be able to build up on this, but I just wanted to put it in the timeline because that's at the time of the day it happened. Moving on. We're about a third of the way through, by the way, so that should make you happy. Okay, so around the same time, Russian Foreign Ministry, they are in your room for you. Are there... What? I don't know what that means. Anyway, moving on. Russian Foreign Ministry... Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lapdog said Wednesday that a business-like spirit is emerging at talks with Ukraine that are now focused on a natural status for the war-torn country. A neutral status is being seriously discussed in connection with security guarantees. This is what Lapdog said on Russian channel RBK TV. There are concrete formulations that, in my view, are close to being agreed upon. That is some diplomatic bullshit speak. He didn't elaborate, but said the business-like spirit starting to surface in the talks gives hope that we can agree on this issue. No, I already fed them Fine 8. That's why I don't understand why they're here. Anyway, I have a rant with this particular subject, and I promise I won't drag this on too far. But basically what Sergei Lapdog is saying is he's getting his way, and it's almost like being in a business negotiation. This guy has never watched or read The Art of the Deal. And he's saying that they keep pushing they're pushing for the Ukraine to accept only being a neutral buffer nation. So here's where my rant should begin. If you're Ukraine, there should be no compromise. Zero. Nothing. If they say that they want this, you stand up, you flip the bird, you take your middle finger, you put it on that fucking lapdog's forehead, and you shove him off the chair so he falls flat on his back and say, "Who the fuck are you to tell me what I should give up when you are the invader?" There should be no compromise. Zero. This level of compromise that he is talking about is exactly what created East and West Germany and the Berlin Wall and the Cold War. This also is the same level of compromise that created North and South Korea, again, where the Russians stuck their fucking nose in geopolitical business and split another sovereign nation apart. No. No. If you're Ukraine and you're NATO and you have a set of balls between your legs, you end this right now. You destroy Vladimir Putin. You kill him. You put his decrepit ass in the ground. And you end the last vestiges of communism that existed in Russia. You get rid of all of them. You just eradicate it once and for all. The Cold War has been going on way too fucking long. It's time to just end it. Chop the head off of it and get rid of it. And leave it a rotten hulk. I think my puppy agrees. Anyway, the reason I say that is simple. The youth of the Russian Federation do not know socialism. They were born after it. They don't know what it was. They cannot be convinced that it's better than what they have now. Because what they have now is Starbucks and McDonald's and a capitalistic society. They have iPhones. They have Discord, they have the internet, they have a free market, they have Ivan the Bear Tactical, they have Zenico furniture for your AK-47 or your Vitchaz like I've got my KP9. They have what we have. They don't want what this asshole is trying to force on them. Get rid of him. No compromise. If you're Ukraine, just say no. Do you really want to split your country into East and West Ukraine? Probably not. So is this guy full of shit? Absolutely. Sergey Lapdog? Go fuck yourself. And that's my never enough ammo moment of the night. That's the end of my rant for that. If any of you disagree, what planet do you live on? So let's move on. This is the part where I'm going to tell my panelists to go ahead and mute themselves, jump on the YouTube side, and get ready to watch the video. I'm going to give you about 30 seconds to go ahead and do that before I start it. And I want to share with you what I woke up to, what I knew was coming, and that is President Volodomyrr Zelenskyy. And he addressed a joint session of Congress today. And what he had to say kind of changed my life a little bit today. And I'll explain that afterwards. But I will share that with you so you know what's going on. And while it's playing, I'll try to deal with my stupid dogs. Anyway.
All 9 of them?
Oh, I've only got 2 in here, and I don't know why these 2 particular ones are here. I don't get it. Let me find the video. It's here. And I'm going to play this for you because this aired this morning. And I really, really think you need to see it. So, here we go.
Thank you very much. Madam Speaker, members of the Congress, ladies and gentlemen, Americans, friends, I'm proud to greet you from Ukraine, from our capital city of Kyiv, a city that is under missile and airstrikes from Russian troops every day, but it doesn't give up. And we have not even thought about it for a second. Just like many other cities and communities in our beautiful country, which found themselves in the worst war since World War II. I have the honor to greet you on behalf of the Ukrainian people, brave and freedom-loving people who for 8 years have been resisting the Russian aggression. Those who give their best sons and daughters to stop this full-scale Russian invasion. Right now, the destiny of our country is being decided. The destiny of our people, whether Ukrainians will be free, whether they will be able to preserve their democracy. Russia has attacked not just us, not just our land, not just our cities. It went on a brutal offensive against our values, basic human values. It threw tanks and planes against our freedom, against our right to live freely in our own country, choosing our own future, against our desire for happiness, against our national dreams, just like the same dreams you have, you Americans, just like anyone else in the United States. I remember your national memorial in Rushmore, the faces of your prominent presidents, those who laid the foundation of the United States of America as it is today, democracy, independence, freedom, and care for everyone, for every person, for everyone who works diligently, who lives honestly, who respects the law. We in Ukraine want the same for our people. All that is normal part of your own life. Ladies and gentlemen, friends, Americans, In your great history, you have pages that would allow you to understand Ukrainians. Understand us now when you need it right now, when we need you right now. Remember Pearl Harbor, terrible morning of December 7, 1941, when your sky was black from the planes attacking you. Just remember it. Remember September the 11th, a terrible day in 2001 when evil tried to turn your cities, independent territories, in battlefields, when innocent people were attacked from air. Yes, just like no one else expected it. You could not stop it. Our country experience the same every day, right now, at this moment, every night, for 3 weeks now. Various Ukrainian cities, Odessa and Kharkiv, Chernihiv and Sumy, Zhytomyr and Lviv, Mariupol and Dnipro. Russia has turned the Ukrainian sky into a source of death for thousands of people. Russian troops have already fired nearly 1,000 missiles at Ukraine, countless bombs. They use drones to kill us with precision. This is a terror that Europe has not seen for 80 years, and we are asking for a reply, for an answer to this terror from the whole world. Is this a lot to ask for, to create a no-fly zone over Ukraine to save people? Is this too much to ask? Humanitarian no-fly zone, something that that Russia would not be able to terrorize our free cities. If this is too much to ask, we offer an alternative. You know what kind of defense systems we need, S-300 and other similar systems. You know how much depends on the battlefield, on the ability to use aircraft, powerful, strong aviation to protect our people, our freedom, our land, aircraft that can help Ukraine, help Europe. And you know that they exist and you have them, but they are on earth, not in the Ukrainian sky. They do not defend our people. I have a dream. These words are known to each of you. Today I can say, I have a need. I need to protect our sky. I need your decision, your help, which means exactly the same you feel when you hear the words, I have a dream. Ladies and gentlemen, friends, Ukraine is grateful to the United States for its overwhelming support, for everything that your government and your people have done for us, for weapons and ammunition, for training, for finances, for leadership in the free world, which helps us to pressure the aggressor economically. I'm grateful to President Biden for his personal involvement, for his sincere commitment to the defense of Ukraine and democracy all over the world. I am grateful to you for the resolution which recognizes all those who commit crimes against Ukraine, against the Ukrainian people as war criminals. However, now, it is true, in the darkest time for our country, for the whole Europe, I call on you to do more. New packages of sanctions are needed constantly, every week, until the Russian military machine stops. Restrictions are needed for everyone on whom this unjust regime is based. We propose that the United States sanctions all politicians in the Russian Federation who remain in their offices and do not cut ties with those who are responsible for the aggression against Ukraine, from State Duma's members to the last official who has lack of morale to break the state terror. All American companies must leave Russia from their market, leave their market immediately, because it is flooded with our blood. Ladies and gentlemen, members of Congress, Please take the lead. If you have companies in your districts who finance the Russian military machine leaving business in Russia, you should put pressure. I am asking to make sure that the Russians do not receive a single penny that they use to destroy people in Ukraine. The destruction of our country, the destruction of Europe. All American ports should be closed for Russian goods. Peace is more important than income, and we have to defend this principle in the whole world. We already became part of the anti-war coalition, a big anti-war coalition that unites many countries, dozens of countries, those who reacted to, in principle, to President Putin's decision to invade our country. But we need to move on and do more. We need to create new tools to respond quickly and stop the war, the full-scale Russian invasion of Ukraine, which began on February 24th. And it would be fair if it ended in a day, in 24 hours, that evil would be punished immediately. Today, the world does not have such tools. The war of the past have prompted our predecessors to create institutions that should protect us from war, but they unfortunately don't work. We see it, you see it, so we need new ones, new institutions, new alliances, and we offer them. We propose to create an association, U24, United for Peace, a union of responsible countries that have the strength and consciousness to stop conflicts immediately, provide all the necessary assistance in 24 hours, if necessary, even weapons, if necessary, sanctions, humanitarian support, political support, finances, everything you need to keep the peace and quickly save the world, to save lives. In addition, such association, such union could provide assistance to those who are experiencing natural disasters, man-made disasters, who fell victims to humanitarian crisis or epidemics. Remember how difficult it was for the world to do the simplest thing, just to give vaccines against COVID to save lives, to prevent new strains. The world spent months, years doing things like that, much faster, to make sure there are no human losses, no victims. Ladies and gentlemen, Americans, if such alliance would exist today, that is U24, we would be able to save thousands of lives in our country. In many countries of the world, those who need peace, those who suffer inhumane destruction. I ask you to watch one video of what the Russian troops did in our country, in our land. We have to stop it. We must prevent it, preventively destroy every single aggressor who seeks to subjugate other nations. Please watch the video.
And in the end, to sum it up, today it's not enough to be the leader of the nation. Today it takes to be the leader of the world. Being the leader of the world means to be the leader of peace. Peace in your country doesn't depend anymore only on you and your people. It depends on those next to you, on those who are strong. Strong doesn't mean weak. Strong is brave and ready to fight for the life of his citizens and citizens of the world, for human rights, for freedom, for the right to live decently and to die when your time comes, and not when it's wanted by someone else, by your neighbor. Today, the Ukrainian people are defending not only Ukraine, we are fighting for the values of Europe and the world, sacrificing our lives in the name of the future. That's why today the American people are helping not just Ukraine, but Europe and the world to keep the planet alive, to keep justice in history. Now I'm almost 45 years old. Today my age stopped when the hearts of more than 100 children stopped beating. I see no sense in life if it cannot stop the death. And this is my main mission as the leader of my people, great Ukrainians. And as the leader of my nation, I am addressing the President Biden. You are the leader of the nation, of your great nation. I wish you to be the leader of the world. Being the leader of the world means to be the leader of peace. Thank you. Slava Ukraini.
Glory to Ukraine.
Thank you for your support.
So, that happened this morning, and it kind of left an impression on me because I am now about to be 43 soon, like 3 weeks from now. And listening to him speak, and I know I've been accused of this before, but when it comes to things geopolitical, you have to take a lot of the emotion out of a situation, and you have to focus on problem and work on solution, which is exactly what I did as a psychologist and a sociologist. But you cannot deny the fact that what he had presented today conveyed his message perfectly, because what he had showed Congress today and what he had showed the world, because this was on every channel this morning, he appealed not to Congress. He did not appeal to Congress. Congress was just his stage. He appealed to humanity. He appealed to the American people, and he appealed to President Joseph R. Biden. And he said, you need to reclaim your place in the world as a world leader. And I don't think he did that. I don't think he can do that. Especially given the canned, hopeless, useless response that he gave after delaying his response video twice today. The video that he put together, it encapsulates the horror of war, and it should anger everybody, every one of you in some way. Like, we have Gunpowder Beauty in the audience. She recently had a child, very recently, and I congratulated her for it because that's an incredible event in your life, right? Now, I've never been through it. I've raised people who've had them, but I can imagine the gravity of what she just saw because of how she responded. That piece of that video is what got to her. The whole thing for me was his response, where he basically took everything he wanted and he made a perfect point and he threw it right at the heart of Joseph R. Biden, President of the United States. I'm not going to be disrespectful to the President of the United States. You don't have to respect the man, but you do have to respect the office. And what he did was he just challenged the leader of the most powerful nation on earth to take his rightful place in history, as we have done countless times before. And what really infuriates me is the response that he was given. It was terrible. And it just proves further how weak we are on the geopolitical stage by electing that idiot in the White House. Now, I didn't do it, and most of you didn't do it, but a bunch of other idiots did it. And it's our job to convince them that they made a mistake. Not by attacking them, and not by chastising them, and not by berating them. Because hopefully the last 18 or so months have already illustrated to them the error of their ways. But it is our job and our duty, our civic duty, as people of the opposition, to show them the error of their ways in the most polite way possible, but also in the most forceful way possible. Because I can't stand stupid people. Anyway, the office is vacant, Al. You're absolutely correct. It is the inmates have currently run the asylum, and that's what needs to stop. And now, I know most of you have done your civic duty. I'm not even challenging you to do it, because you already have. Your challenge is to make sure somebody, one person that you know didn't, get one other person to get off their ass and go do their civic duty. Because this is preventable. This whole war was preventable. In the event of a war or an attack from a belligerent nation, a country who has sat there and applied and jumped through every fucking hoop that NATO has put in front of him, including disarming his nuclear arsenal, in a sign of good faith, to join a group he thought was going to save humanity for him after breaking away from a Cold War socialist nation, and to have us not respond in kind, is that in itself is a crime. Because now his trump card is gone, and that's why a third of his nation is invaded by Russia. We asked him to disarm his nuclear armament to show us that he was serious about joining NATO. And what has NATO done since? Oh, here's some thoughts and prayers and some helmets. Okay, yeah, we'll send you a couple of javelins and a couple of this. Okay. What we have sent him so far is, I will not discount it, okay? These people have literally done what the Marine Corps does with equipment, okay? The Army gets the equipment, and the Marine Corps makes the equipment legendary. That is a cliche and a saying that's been going on since World War II. It's just a fact. The Army gets it, standard issue. As the standard issue gets old, they pass it on to the Marine Corps as leftovers and hand-me-downs, and those are the guys who make you see how good it really is, right? We've been handing javelins and Stinger missiles and all sorts of hardware to Ukraine, and those people have shown us how effective you can be with it. Look no further than the video I shared with you days ago of the tank column, where they took out the front tank, the rear tank, and created a kill box in the middle with just javelins and wasted it. Okay? They're doing the best they can. They're asking for more. That's what it is. We as a the thing is government right now, the government we put in power, or most of us, or some of us have put in power, do not reflect the will of the people too well. Tony's going to bed. We'll say goodnight. Anyway, the point is, the military works for the government. The government is selected by the people. The people are telling the government, do more, and the government is listening to the military say no. We're the ones in charge. We selected our representatives. Our representatives are the one who declare war. Yes, people are going to die. Young people are going to die senselessly. The longer this goes on, the more young people will die. The more difficult this war will be to conclude. But this all could have been prevented had we just had an emergency session where NATO said, you know what? Having you join us instead of being absorbed by communism after you fought so hard to get away from it, welcome to NATO. We'll protect you. And they didn't do it. And that's a crime within itself. Because now, like I said since the very first episode of the War Room, the animosity of the Ukrainian people and their leadership is beginning to grow against us. Not me and you, I meant as the West, NATO, the EU, and ultimately us. Because they thought that we were going to save them, and they're not feeling like we're doing it. But I'm going to be fair. We have sent a lot, and we're going to cover that. It's just they need more than what we're doing as a world. And when I tell you about my theory about World War towards the end of this show, I think some of you will understand. And I'm going to try very hard not to be angry. I'm going to try very hard not to be vulgar, because it's hard to convince you if I'm just on a rant. So I'm going to try to calm down when I get to that segment of the show. But anyway, let's move on. We're going to get to the next part. I did that video in this episode specifically because that is where it fell into the timeline of the events of the day. Everything I told you before the video happened before his address. Now everything that you're about to hear is what happened after it. So sit tight, we're going to get through this. An hour after Zelensky's address, it is now 4:46 p.m. in the Ukraine. This is like a halfway point in the middle of a 35-hour Ukrainian curfew. Yesterday, the president, Volodomyrr Zelenskyy, and I think Vitaly Klitschko of Kyiv, they both agreed 35-hour lockdown. Everyone stay indoors. Do not go out in the streets. It's too dangerous. We're halfway through that. And this is what happened after. Here's a picture. Fallout 4. Now, I know many of you aren't gamers, and I understand that you may not get this reference. So let me just give you a very quick, brief parallel. There's a game. It's called Fallout. It is an alternative reality to what we have here today for you and me. And the way that that reality began is humanity embraced the atom after World War II. Whereas the Cold War for us began, and we didn't pursue nuclear energy on the same scale. Okay, we kind of pared it back. Once we saw the destructive capability of the nuclear weapon, humanity sort of pared it back. And we were like, let's be careful with this. This is a great and horrible responsibility, right? So you know how history unfolded for us after 1945, from there to today, in terms of nuclear arms, nuclear energy, the use of it or the lack of use of it. Okay, Europe has embraced the atom far more than the United States has, just based on the number of reactors and how many plants there are over there compared to how many we have. And even the ones we have are turned way down to like fucking 10, 20%. Because it's like, we don't really need it. Yeah, it's clean, but the nuclear waste after is not. And we don't know if it's going to blow up. So, 3 Mile Island and all that stuff, right? We had all that going on. Well, Fallout 4 had a story about synthetic human beings. They called them synths. And it was a guy who created synthetic beings to live among the people. At first, they were just like robots, right? Do my bidding. But he continued to develop them further, and they had artificial intelligence, and they started to be sentient beings. And then they started this whole, what is human? There was a question asked, what is human, right? Well, to sort of manage the ruins of a post-apocalyptic world, this group took these synthetic beings and made clones of real people that were on Earth, above ground, that survived the nuclear holocaust. And what they decided they were going to do is they were going to take the real person and pull him away and put this synthetic being in his place, and nobody would nobody would know the wiser, except for the fact that person suddenly had a change of heart and their political view had changed to follow the creator of these synthetic beings' ideologies to sort of mold the government of the ruins of Earth. Well, Russia must be a real big fan of Fallout, because what you're seeing here, this guy here, is the third Ukrainian mayor abducted by Russian troops. What they're doing is they're grabbing the leaders of towns in Ukraine, kidnapping them, disappearing them, essentially, and then they're installing puppet government mayors. Now, obviously, they don't look like this guy, but they basically said, look, we pulled this out of your country, and we're going to put this in here, and you're going to deal with it. This is the third mayor of a sovereign nation's cities. Ukrainian Minister of Foreign Affairs Dmitry Kuleba again called for the international community to intervene. Kuleba on Wednesday announced the abductions of Mayor Skadovsk Alexander Yakovlev and his deputy Yuri Palyuk. Russian invaders continue to abduct democratically elected local leaders in Ukraine, he wrote, sharing a beachside selfie of Yakovlev. States and international organizations must demand Russia immediately release all abducted Ukrainian officials. Kuleba's tweet came just 2 hours after Volodymyr Zelenskyy expected to address the U.S. Congress at 9 a.m. Yakovlev is the third Ukrainian mayor abducted so far. Now, bear in mind, yesterday I told you a story about how the Russian people, parliament people, social media people, influencers, government puppets, you name your title here. They have been making a push and calling for public executions in Ukraine, hangings, to set the tone and bring the people to heel. They have abducted the mayors of 3 cities. Who do you think they're going to start hanging? What do you think that's going to do to the morale of the people? Some will fight. A lot of people will be shocked and devastated. They may come to heel quicker because they might say, if they'll do it to him, they'll do it to me. And that's a dangerous precedent to set. This is the kind of animal we're dealing with. You don't negotiate with that animal. You didn't negotiate with Il Duce. You don't negotiate with Adolf Hitler. And the world did not negotiate with Joseph Stalin, who killed over 20 million of his own people. Just a thought. So let's move on. I'm trying very hard to stay calm about this because I'm actually furious. About an hour later, it's now 5:50 p.m. We're getting to the evening hours. This is where the Russian military starts to get pretty active. Oh, I have a picture for you too. Sorry. I'm trying to get better at this. Czech Republic Prime Minister Petr Fiala said Wednesday that Ukraine these days and weeks need above all arms supply after visiting the capital Kyiv today with his Polish and Slovenian counterparts. Those of you who were here yesterday, you may have heard me say that there was a story where Zelenskyy had invited local leaders of other nations to come to Kyiv despite the fact that they're under siege. They came. They grew a pair of balls and they came because this was important to them as well. He said such supplies have to be delivered quickly by as many countries as possible, and it has to be massive. It must be done in days, Fiala said. We have to realize that the Ukrainians also fight for our independence, for our freedom, and we have to support them. That's the reason why we took the risks and we traveled here, to show them that they're not alone. All three prime ministers returned safely to Poland earlier this morning, and the Polish government confirmed this. The leaders had met with President Volodymyrr Zelenskyy on Tuesday to send the message that Ukraine is not alone and that they support the nation's aspirations to one day join the European Union. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but the EU has already fast-tracked their acceptance into their union. So we should be good there. Like, they should already be there. It's NATO that they need to get them in. It's the protections of NATO that let Scott sleep in the middle of a chat.
No, actually not.
I heard you snore, fucker.
No, you heard my throat.
Oh, fine. I'll let you have that one. All right. So, let's move on. Sorry, I'm just messing with you. About the same time, we got a new update from the UN, which has been kind of quiet about action, right? This has been a NATO sort of comedy of errors. I don't know how to describe it. This has been a NATO fiasco. I don't know. Like, it's been a NATO exercise. Let's call it that. I'm trying not to be rude. But the UN decides to speak out, and what they've been doing is sort of giving us the numbers when it comes to humanitarian issues. So I guess they're doing something. Anyway, about the same time, the UN released its new statistics, and I have a map for you, so you can get a good idea of how weird things are. This is it. The United Nations says 3,063,095 people have fled Ukraine since the beginning of the Russian invasion. Nearly 2 million of these people are now taking refuge in Poland. There's the actual number, 1,857,045. Poland is running out of space. Poland will continue to take these people with open arms and the best of intentions, but they have begun to vocalize the strain on their resources. Look at the other numbers. That's a big number. Look at the size of Moldova and look at the number of people that went there. That's staggering. Moldova is a country of originally 4 million people. 25% of their original population left because there was no jobs and the economy was poor. They're one of the poorest nations in the region, and yet they took 344,000 people into their ranks. They have recovered 33% of what they lost in an economic exodus. That's huge. Poland has taken almost 2 million people alone. All the other nations that have been with them, Slovakia, which used to be Czechoslovakia, they have taken on. Hungary has taken on. Romania has taken on. But the one that really surprises me the most, Russia. almost 156,000 people. That has to be separatist, brainwashed douchebags from Donetsk and Luhansk. It has to be. What else could it be? Nobody's stupid enough to go towards the arms of the very people killing them. Who's fucking stupid enough to do that? And the proof is in the pudding. Look how few people went to Belarus. 1,800. Belarus is attacking them. 1,800 people went there because it was a shorter trip for those in Luhansk, I guess. They were like, fuck it, let's go. Anyway, the point is 3 million. When this all started, they estimated 4 million. They thought, it's going to be a mass exodus. Nobody expected 3 million in 21 days. They figured 4 million for the whole conflict. We went from 1 million to 2 million in days. We went from 2 million to 3 million in about 48 hours. That's the seriousness of this situation. This is what a world war looks like. Let's move on. An hour or so later, it's now dusk, 6:57 Ukrainian time. It's dark. This is when the military really starts getting warmed up. This is when the Russian Air Force starts to do what they do best, which is the worst for the rest of humanity. And you may find this a little disturbing. Unfortunately, it is. Well, fortunately, if you find it disturbing, it's blurred. Unfortunately, I tried desperately to find a non-censored version of this because you need to see this. See, my beef with humanity is if you think you can turn away your eyes from something, it doesn't make it go away. And this is serious. So here you go. This was a bread line. What it is now is 10 dead people. A video that emerged Wednesday purportedly shows the bodies scattered along a street in the Ukrainian city of Chernihiv. It's one of the biggest cities in the country. Today, Russian forces shot and killed 10 people standing in line for bread in Chernihiv because they're starving. They've been encircled and they've been under attack. They've been besieged, just like every other major city. These people just want to eat. Now they're dead. The U.S. Embassy in Kyiv released this photo. Such horrific attacks must stop. We are considering all available options to ensure the accountability for any atrocity crimes in Ukraine. Really? And what option do you have when your enemy is doing this to the civilian population and then turning around and denying that they're killing civilians or bombing 30 hospitals? It's going to get worse. This is just the start of it. I just thought I would start with this. Ukraine wants to negotiate with these assholes? Really? I don't think so. I don't think they should. I don't think they should have to. I don't think the world should allow them to. I don't think Putin should be allowed a pass. I don't think any of you do either. I hope you don't. Anyway, let's move on. I would have really stuck that picture to you a lot further if it was uncensored, but I'll let you fill in the blanks with your own imagination. At the same time, there is a lot of rumbling going on in Washington. This was after Zelensky's brilliant speech today. Senator Ben Sasse, he's a Republican out of Nebraska. He called on the U.S. to do whatever is necessary to help Ukraine defend itself against Russia, after Ukrainian President Volodomyrr Zelenskyy addressed Congress asking for their assistance. Zelenskyy showed a video of the carnage taking place in his country and asked either for a no-fly zone over Ukraine or for fighter jets that his military can use. You guys saw the video. I showed it to you. I showed it to you twice on my channel today. Sasse stressed that it is imperative that Ukraine emerges from this conflict victorious, not just for itself, but for the free world. Zelenskyy needs to win. The Ukrainian freedom fighters need to win. We don't need them just to lose more slowly. We need them to win. To win, they need to kill Russians. To kill Russians, they need more weapons. This is what Sass told to reporters immediately after Zelensky's remarks. Like, there were just press conference after press conference after press conference. Steve Scalise jumped in there. Kevin McCarthy jumped in there. Like, there was more response to this speech today than the last 4 State of the Union address rebuttals. It was incredible. The amount of anger from Congress that this generated today, in a positive way, mind you, is historical. It really is. Like, I'm trying to give you the gravity of how much history was made today. This isn't just, diplomacy run amok. No, this was history. You saw what should be Time Magazine's Man of the Year lay out probably one of the greatest speeches in our lifetime. How often do you get to see this? He was JFK, he was FDR, he was Rudy Giuliani on on September 12th, 2001 today. He was all of these things. He was Martin Luther King. Like, he channeled everything that he knew was Americana, and he didn't do it in a way that threw it right back in your face. He didn't do that. That's rude, right? He didn't do that. He gave you a very subtle and gentle history lesson and said, this is what my people face. Imagine if you had to do it today. How would you respond? And who would you ask, and what would you ask for in terms of help? And that's all I'm asking from you. That is how big this was. Anyway, they need more javelins. They need more ammo. They need more Stinger missiles. They need more surface-to-air missiles. They need more airplanes. They need more of everything. This is what Ben Sass is saying. The Biden administration has rejected an arrangement whereby Poland would transport MiG fighter jets to an American base in Germany for them to be transferred to the Ukraine. Now, I'm going to be very fair here, and I don't think he's been watching since, so he won't get credit for this, even though I will give it to him. Squibload would say that this is bullshit because Poland is pushing off its geopolitical responsibilities on us to broker a deal. So if blame was laid on anything, it would be us for making it happen. I would argue back that every Stinger missile and every Javelin that kills a Russian tank or aircraft has already done that. So any other argument about jets is irrelevant to me. I'm sorry, you're not going to convince me otherwise. Ever. If I lent you a gun and you killed somebody, I would go to jail because it was my gun. If I send you a Stinger missile and you shoot down a Russian jet, I'm culpable. That's why it's called culpable homicide. I'm responsible for the death of somebody else because I provided the weapon. It's not hard to grasp that concept. Now grasp it on a world stage. That's what we're looking at. And what we're doing right now in government is putting our hands over our eyes, or our fingers in our ears, or our hand over our mouth, and we're trying to deny the reality of the situation. We're already in this. Okay, let's move on. Lawmakers have been urging the president to reconsider. There is something called the Problem Solvers Caucus. It is split 50-50, even between conservatives and liberals alike, Democrats. I'm not going to be rude. Conservatives and Democrats, Republicans and Democrats alike. It's a 50-50 split. They have all unanimously agreed. Give them the fucking MiGs. Okay? If you can get both sides, and you know how these parties throw daggers at each other on everything else, If you can get those two guys to these two sides to agree, give them the fucking MiGs, then you have no reason to say no, okay? Because we elected them. They tell Congress, or they tell the military, you can go to war. We let them authorize the war. The military doesn't get to turn around and say, no, we're not doing it. No, you don't answer to that, okay? You answer to us, especially when we fill your infantry and we go die for your military in your country that we represent, okay? That means we are ultimately the boss. Okay, we put you in power, we made you the general, we made you the military, and you answer to Congress, and we voted for Congress. You work for us. Don't ever fucking forget that. Ever. Now, if you want to say, I don't want my kid to go die in someone else's war, that's a fair argument to make. But the fact of the matter is, you took an oath. It's gonna happen. War is ugly. People are gonna die. I don't like it, but it's the hand we're dealt. And a lot of people are gonna die the longer we dick around with this. So, sorry, I'm being really long-winded about this. Maybe this was the story of the day. The Biden administration had rejected an agreement whereby Poland would transport the MiG fighter jets to an American base in Germany, Ramstein Air Force Base, where my dad was stationed, for them to be transferred to the Ukraine. Lawmakers have been urging the president to reconsider, and Zelenskyy did the same thing at the end of his remarks. You are the leader of a nation, of your great nation. I wish you to be the leader of the world. That's what Zelenskyy said. Being the leader of the world means that you are the leader of peace. Ben Sasse echoed that exact remark. They're not just fighting for their kids and their future, they're fighting for the entirety of the free world. Zelenskyy has the courage of his convictions. The question he asked the Congress and the United States government is, will we have the courage of ours? We are a superpower. We should act like it. That is some heavy-handed commentary. Bravo, Ben Sasse. Welcome to the United States and welcome to the world stage. Reality is different than the theoretical chain of command. You're right. But at the end of the day, we vote for the people who represent us, so we don't have to waste our time to think about every single little bit of the world every day, right? We have kids, we have soccer practice, we have taekwondo, we have our jobs, we have church, we have Little League, we have all those things. We can't sit there and solve the problems of geopolitics on an individual basis. So we entrust that to somebody else who said, you can trust me to handle this thing that you entrusted me with. I will do this on your behalf. That is why we have democracy, right? And we are a democratic republic. So it's, we vote on these things collectively. The fact of the matter is I think government forgot who works for who here, and we need to remind them of that, especially when we're the ones who have to fight for that government and this country. It's like, we put you there and you send us to war, okay? We're on both ends of this, which means we have a say-so on this. We are a superpower. We need to act like it. We need to stop acting like a babbling old fool who doesn't take questions at his press conferences. So let's move on. It is now noon, my time. It is 1 p.m. in the White House. And the White House National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan spoke with the Secretary of the Russian Security Council today. And he called for Russia to stop attacking Ukrainian cities and towns. And he was warning that the consequences should Russia decide to use any chemical or biological weapons on Ukraine. Sullivan spoke with General Nikolai Patrushev on Wednesday as Ukraine and Russia continued talks on the current crisis. Mr. Sullivan clearly laid out the United States' commitment to continue imposing costs on Russia to support the defense of Ukraine's sovereignty and territorial integrity and to reinforce NATO's eastern flank. Now, we've already done that. We've sent troops to Germany and several other countries, and then those countries would backfill closer to like the Slovakian border and so on. So Yes, we're already doing that. Okay. Let's see. I lost my place. Sorry. Mr. Sullivan clearly outlined the United States' commitment to continue imposing costs on Russia to support the defense of Ukraine's sovereignty and territorial integrity and to reinforce the eastern flank in continued full coordination with our allies and partners. This is the part where George S. Patton would smile sarcastically and say, "This is part of being an ally," right? And much to his annoyance. But that's what we're doing. This came from National Security Spokesman Emily Horn. Mr. Sullivan told General Patrushev that if Russia is serious about diplomacy, then Moscow should stop attacking Ukrainian cities and towns. Mr. Sullivan also warned General Patrushev about the consequences and implications of any possible Russian decision to use chemical or biological weapons in Ukraine. My question to you, dear viewer and panelist, do you think it made a damn bit of difference? To quote Night Strike yesterday, who quoted Gary Johnson, what's an Aleppo? You know what an Aleppo is? Aleppo is the last time someone drew a red line in the sand. That was completely trampled on. And they did use chemical weapons and biological agents. And what did we do in response? Not a fucking thing. Do you think this speech from Jake Sullivan made a damn bit of difference? Nah. You see, that's the problem. We're all talk and no guff. We don't carry the stick anymore. Because we have people like AOC who snap it over her knee and say, "Green New Deal!" Which put us in the economic and energy situation we're in today. And yet, she still screams Green New Deal. What an idiot. What a glorious moron. You people in New York who voted for her, you should be ashamed of yourselves. Moving right along. I have a new picture. Here you go. It's got a caption because I'm angry. I'm always angry. I must be the Bruce Banner of YouTube. It is now 2:01 Eastern Standard Time. Admittedly, this is post facto, by the way, because Joseph R. Biden was late to his late announcement. As soon as Volodymyr Zelenskyy had his speech, the White House immediately said, "We're delaying our response by half an hour." And then he was another hour late to that. We all thought, he must be rewriting everything. It must be important. Maybe he actually got through to our president, and maybe our president's going to finally grow a set of balls and put his foot down and go, "I'm going to give them what they asked for. They need it. This needs to end." Did he? No. No, he was just late. Probably because they had to change his rubber underwear and put a second pair on. President Biden announced Wednesday that the U.S. will send an additional $800 million of security assistance to Ukraine, including transfers of equipment from the Department of Defense to the Ukrainian military. Now remember, they just signed an omnibus spending bill of $1.5 trillion. That is 1,000 billion. Do the math. 800 million is a drop in the fucking bucket. Where do you think all that other money went? Because it's a 2,800-page bill. Did any of you read it? No. Did you have any chance to even tell your congressman you better fucking read it before you vote on it? No. Because it went from the House to the Senate in 48 hours and then to the president's desk. Do you think any of them fuckers read it? No. Because each one of those pricks put in their own little pork spending special interest bullshit and said, "I will vote for this whole bill as long as you put my piece in there." That is why we have government waste. Nobody reads shit. And we end up footing the bill. And that's why Nancy Pelosi has $200,000 worth of fancy freezers with $30,000 worth of gourmet ice cream in each one, while you're sitting there eating macaroni and cheese listening to this asshole on YouTube. Just a thought. Anyway. President Biden announced Wednesday that the U.S. will send this $800 million in security assistance to Ukraine. This package includes, now, I'm not discounting what we're sending, okay? Let me just get that out of the way now, because this is stuff they absolutely need, and they have been making it work brilliantly. 800 anti-aircraft systems, Stingers. 9,000 anti-armor systems, right? Let's look at the list. 800 Stinger and anti-aircraft systems. That includes 2,000 Javelins, 1,000 light anti-armor weapons, 6,000 AT-4 anti-armor tank systems. Now, the Dutch sent Javelins, Stingers, and Panzerfaust 3s. Those are anti-tank systems. So, they're getting a bunch of hardware. I'm not discounting that one bit. 100 tactical unnamed aerial systems. They're called Sling Blades. They're evil. These are good UAVs. They're attack UAVs. So that's impressive. I like that. 100 grenade launchers, 5,000 rifles, 1,000 pistols, 400 machine guns, and 400 shotguns. Do you think there's an NFA for that? Do you think there was a tax stamp or a fucking background check for that? No. 20 million rounds of small arms ammunition and grenade launcher and mortar rounds. Remember, small arms includes machine guns. 20 million rounds. But there's an ammo shortage. I can't find fucking primers or powder. Can you? And even if you do find primers, have you noticed you're paying 10 times what they used to cost? Mm-hmm. Shortage. Fuck you. Bullshit. 25,000 sets of body armor, and here's some thoughts and prayers and 25,000 helmets. I'm not saying that they're not useful, but God, did you have to walk right into my analogy with that shit? Anyway, this could be a long and difficult battle, but the American people will be steadfast in our support for the people of Ukraine in the face of Putin's immoral, unethical attacks on civilian populations. This came from the office of Joseph R. Biden. Here's some helmets. Shit. Sorry, that just pisses me off. HVS says we can save money because a well-aimed bottle rocket can take out a T-90. I will have you know, sir. I will have you know. I'm going to have you stop bashing on the Russian T-90. Because the fact of the matter is the Russians don't even use them. They just abandon them with the ammo racks full and the gas tanks even fuller. They just hop out and they're like, I'm not a part of this. Because I showed you that video of those 5 farmers who just walked up to 2 T-92s, the upgraded ones, the better model, and they banged on the turret with a rock and nobody answered. And then somebody looked inside the hatch and saw all the munitions and the ammo racks right where they're supposed to be. And then he was forced to jump down into the driver's compartment, and he fired that fucker right up, and it had a full tank of gas. They're not even using the shit they got, because they don't believe in this war, just like the rest of the world. So why do we keep allowing it to go on longer and longer and longer? It's not right. We have the power to end this quickly, decisively, and absolutely. And we're not doing it. Why? Why? Because we don't want to end it. You see, if we find a way where we can get the 4 nations in NATO to cough up all their MiG-29s to the Ukraine in a way that we don't have to get our hands dirty, we will be okay with that. Because then those 4 nations will cut us a check to build them F-16s, which will kickstart our military-industrial complex and our economy, which is jobs. And we sell them jets while they gave their MiG-29s away for free. It's brilliant if you are a businessman. It's scummy otherwise. HVS, you are correct. They cannot mass produce T-14s. The Armada. They have some. They don't have many. But even if they did, they, they their soldiers got lied to, man. Like, half these guys are kids. Satan II missile is a concern, yes. Also the Belgorod. That is a frightening piece of military equipment in the ocean. I will not deny that. You're right, though. I think a lot of that has to do with it. The reason that the world collectively hasn't grown a set and just put down Putin is because you can kill every Russian on Earth, but if Putin's the last man standing and his finger's still on the button, you're still going to give him an audience, aren't you? Because mutually assured destruction is a bitch! Yeah. God created man, Samuel Colt made it equal. No, he didn't. Nuclear weapons made one man God. Now you better hope that man isn't unreasonable. But you know what? There's a jackass on his finger on the button right now. And that's why we're in the state we're in right now. And that sucks. Let's move on. We're almost done. I promise I'll spare you too much more drama. It's just, I'm very animated tonight for some reason. Okay, 8:09 p.m. Ukrainian time. It's dark. We're at dusk. This is a post-facto story, though. Ukrainian Foreign Minister Dmytro Kuleba, you've seen his name pop up several times today, said Wednesday that Russia's military has attacked a theater in Mariupol. This is fucking disgusting. Here's a before and after. Do you see a building there in the bottom picture? No. The theater in Mariupol held hundreds of civilians in hiding from the war because their houses were already destroyed. The building is now completely destroyed. The people may still be inside what's left of it. The Russians could not have not known that this was a civilian building. There's still no casualty report yet. This was 9 hours ago. Okay, I have checked my sources for an update. We still don't have a body count because it's pieces of people. This is what the world has to deal with. This is what Ukraine has to deal with directly, and the rest of us get to witness and decide if we're going to help them deal with it directly. This is the face of evil. And yet, here's some helmets. Okay, all right. I'll get you the numbers by tomorrow, I'm sure. I'm pretty sure. Basically what they'll do is they'll just start counting the skulls they can pick out. Because they will. Because there was over 200 people inside. Last count I got was over 200. Nobody walked out of that. So let's just use 200 as a base. You'll know tomorrow. I promise you. I'll put it in here. If he would have said he was half animated tonight, I would have blamed it on genetics. Or, halfy joke. Thank you, Pink. Thank you very much. I needed that tension breaker. All right, let's go. We're almost done. I promise. I'm not going to keep you guys too much longer. 8:13 p.m. Ukrainian time. The International Court of Justice on Wednesday said that the Russian Federation shall immediately suspend the military operations that it commenced on February 24th in the territory of Ukraine. International Court of Justice. Let me read that again. The International Court of Justice on Wednesday said the Russian Federation shall immediately suspend the military operations that it commenced on February 24, 2022 in the territory of Ukraine. What the fuck gives them the authority to say that? 2 weeks ago, Ukraine asked the ICJ to intervene in the conflict, arguing Russia violated a 1948 treaty by falsely accusing Ukraine of committing genocide and using that as a pretext for the ongoing invasion. Countries who refuse to abide by court orders can be referred to the UN Security Council, where Russia holds veto power. Many are skeptical that Russia will comply with the order, but Ukraine President Volodomyrr Zelenskyy hailed it as a major victory. Ukraine gained a complete victory in its case against Russia at the ICJ, he wrote on Twitter. The ICJ ordered to immediately stop the invasion. The order is binding under international law. Russia must comply immediately. Ignoring the order will isolate Russia even further. My question is, do you think it'll help? No. Because diplomacy is just like religion. It only works if you can convince the followers to have faith in the system. The Russians don't have faith in the system. You see, the problem is when you go to war, the belligerent nation never in history has abided by the Hague or the Geneva Conventions. The fact of the matter is they fight to win. They are the belligerent nation, and they will do whatever it takes to achieve victory. And if they win, they don't violate anything, do they? Because they're the victor, and the victor writes history, which means the Hague and the Geneva Convention don't matter because they won. Evil won. If evil loses, then the only thing that the Hague and the Geneva Convention and the ICJ can do is tack on and won penalties for war crimes charges. And that's even if you catch the bastards alive. So what the fuck is the point of having it? You better be damn sure you win and capture these fuckers. Otherwise, everything that you're saying now is meaningless. It's like, okay, there's a mass murderer on the loose. He's killed 100 people in your city. Okay? You caught him. Now you're going to charge him with 100 murders. You're going to charge him with 100 illegal weapons charges. You're going to charge him with running 1,000 red lights. You're going to charge him with resisting arrest, firing on a police officer, public endangerment. You see where I'm going with this? It's and ones. It's a bunch of little bullshit ticky-tack laws to make sure that he's in jail for life. Because a lot of states in this country have lost their balls, and they got rid of the death penalty. Because apparently they think, we're better than them. So we're going to keep them in jail and feed them for the rest of their life. Fuck that. You put me in front of that guy with a wood chipper. I'll take care of it for you. Gone. Zzz. Done. Justice. Finished. Let's move on. Pink's here. That's why I brought up the wood chipper. Thought he'd find that funny. Anyway. It is now 4:14 p.m. Eastern Time. This story came 2 hours after the last story. It's just we're moving across the world, okay? So the first story with the ICJ was 1:13 Central Time. 2 hours later, 3:14 Central Time, which is 4:14 Eastern Time. I hope that clarifies. I hate this woman so much. White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki, I can't not be angry when I say that name, said Wednesday that the White House is determined that there is no difference between a no-fly zone that would shut down all airspace over Ukraine and a humanitarian no-fly zone, saying that both could be escalatory by the Russians because the Russians are bad. The comments came as calls have grown from Ukraine for NATO to implement a no-fly zone in the country to help defend itself against Russian aircraft. The U.S. has ruled out such a tactic, fearing that it could escalate the war into a conflict between Russia and NATO. You don't say. Didn't the Russians already said that the fact that we've been levying these crippling sanctions was a declaration of war? Yes, they said that a few days ago. Didn't they also say that the fact that any nation who provides arms to the Ukrainians to defend themselves is a declaration of war? Yes, they've been saying that for weeks. We're already in this, so why do we keep lying to ourselves? I ain't got nothing for that. We're in it. I'm convinced. It's our leadership that seems to think we're not, because they're idiots. So, at the same time, this is her White House press conference, by the way, where she has to stand in front of a bunch of the press, and then you have each individual news agency either coddle her or lay her out. White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki said Wednesday that the White House has not changed its stance on allowing for the transfer of Polish MiG fighters to Ukraine, saying such a move could escalate NATO tensions with Russia. Fake fucking news. Let me clarify this. We have already publicly been on the record saying that we are totally cool with the idea of the Poles giving Ukrainians the MiGs. We have been on the record since last Saturday. Green light, go for it. What Jen Psaki was supposed to say is, we're against being the broker of the transfer of the MiGs. We don't want to be the intermediary. We don't want to be the middleman. Now, to that effect, I sort of understand that, but I still don't agree with it. Okay? Whatever it takes to get those planes in the hands of those who need it faster, you do it. Every single thing that Vladimir Putin has said is an escalation. He has preemptively done himself already. So no matter what you do or don't do, he's still going to do it on his end. So you might as well just stop playing tit for tat and give the fucking Ukrainians their jets. Because they are in theater. They are on the ground. They are the ones with tired maintenance crews trying to keep those 58 MiGs running, with those tired pilots that are running 20 sorties a day. Okay? Apparently, nobody has heard of the concept of having to pull a third of your planes off the flight line for maintenance. Okay? If they're running 20 flights a day, those things are wearing out quick. The press secretary stressed that the U.S. would still continue to provide Ukraine with military assistance, though that assistance would be focused on defensive weapons that the Ukrainians have so far used effectively. Psaki also argued that the Defense Department has assessed that the Ukrainian military still has several squadrons of mission-capable aircraft that are not being utilized. Bullshit. They have 58 planes in a country of 40 million. Why don't you go right now, as a challenge, and go look up the USS Gerald R. Ford supercarrier that is in our arsenal and find out how many planes are on that one carrier. 4 times the number that they have in Ukraine. And you're going to bitch and argue about they're not using 58 of them? Fucking bullshit. If you give them the 28 MiGs from Poland, you have increased their combat effectiveness by 33%. That would be like taking a third of a second supercarrier in our country and providing assistance. Okay? Don't fucking tell me that that's not going to help. That's bullshit. On top of that, even if you don't have the ability to scrape up an extra 28 pilots, you can take 28 tired MiGs from the Ukrainian inventory and set them aside and do the maintenance it is so desperately needed after flying 20 flights a day for 21 days straight. How long do you think turbine engines, how long do you think they last being run that hard, constantly? Don't you think they need an oil change? I'm just using basic terminology. Obviously, this maintenance is way harder. But I mean, just think about it. Imagine if you had to take your car that you drive every day to work, put it in only second gear, and drive down the highway for 10 hours straight. And then go home, turn it off, go to bed, turn it on again the next morning, start it up, and do the same thing every day. Every day, balls to the wall. How long do you think that car is going to last? Don't you think you have to stop and maybe rotate the tires and change the oil and make sure that there ain't a rod sticking out the side of the fucking block? Yes. Yes. Don't you think having an extra 28 MiGs would give them the ability to take some of the tired ones off the line and make sure that they're not going to explode during takeoff? Yes. Don't you think the guys who actually have to fly and man and maintain those things in a combat environment would know better than some egghead asshole in the Pentagon 10,000 miles away saying they don't need them? Yes. Remember, we're in charge. We elected those assholes. We should probably put boots to ass and make them realize this. I'm going to keep banging that drum. I will. I'm thinking about it both as a military strategist and a capitalist. There's 4 nations in NATO that service MiG-29s. If you gave all 4 of those nations to give Ukraine their MiG-29s, they would have an air force of over 200 aircraft. That's sizable. That is a powerful air defense. And yet we still haven't committed a single pilot, a single serviceman. We're not involved still. And we have quadrupled their combat effectiveness. And on top of that, Poland said we will give them our MiGs and we will buy your F-16s. Okay? They're giving away their planes, leaving themselves vulnerable, and they will buy aircraft from us. They're not demanding we give it to them for free. They said they will cut us a check. That is jobs. That is manufacturing. That is the opposite of the Biden agenda. That puts people back to work. Okay? Now, what you probably didn't know, many people don't know this, F-16s are only built in Greenville, South Carolina. Thanks to Night Strike for pointing that out. They used to be built, I think, in Dallas, Texas. That was a much bigger facility. The one in Greenville is considered an export manufacturing facility. They make the planes for the export market. They make them so we can sell them. From what I've been told, and I can't verify this, but it doesn't surprise me if it does, they make 12 a year. They make 1 F-16 a month. If you had 4 nations give up their entire fleet of MiG-29s, and all of a sudden an order for 400 F-16s came in to replace their missing aircraft, that's a nice check, isn't it? That's a pretty good chunk of change that the United States gets to make. But how do you build them? And that goes into what we talked about the other day. America needs a new Henry J. Kaiser. America needs Donald J. Trump to be the next Henry J. Kaiser. He needs to help get, and here's the best part, I've already got the plant picked out. If they're building them in South Carolina, keep it in South Carolina. If you don't have the facilities to do so, guess what they build in South Carolina? For the whole world. BMW builds their SUVs in South Carolina. Do you remember a time when Dearborn, Michigan stopped building Fords and started building B-24 Liberators? Do you remember the time where they were able to build 1 a day, or is it 1 an hour, because of the mass production of a assembly line? Could you imagine in a wartime environment that we actually get the BMW facility in South Carolina to retool and build F-16s? It's not impossible. We did it before. We can do it again. That's Americans working at that factory. We have ingenuity. We have the drive and the desire. We also have all the people in Greenville and the people in Dallas who used to build them. They can come and help tool it up. Now, yes, there will be a lag. I talked to somebody about this, and I said, how long would it take to convert that plant to make F-16s? He said, if we Operation Warp Speeded it, about a month. So yeah, okay. There's going to be a month where 4 NATO nations won't have air cover. But guess who will? Ukraine. And guess who needs them? Ukraine. And then we put thousands of Americans back to work building F-16s that go to all 4 of those nations. You see, that's the part about NATO that's great. Everything has to be the same. There's a reason why it's called 556 NATO. There's a reason it's called 762 NATO. Because we wanted the whole world to use the same thing for familiarity in NATO. If we had F-16s, in all the NATO nations, it's like giving all the NATO nations Glock 19s. Meaning any damaged F-16 in combat can land in any NATO nation, and there's a crew that says, "Don't worry, bro, I gotcha. I got the parts. I know how to fix it. I'll get you back in the air in 6 hours." That's the beauty of that situation. And we are not capitalizing as a capitalist nation to arm those with MiG-29s to convert them to F-16s that they're willing to buy. Now do you know why I'm so upset? Now do you know why I want to kick a hole the size of a size 12 boot up the ass of every congressman? They're leaving money on the table. They don't want this war to end. Why? Do they not like money? Do they not like freedom? You think about that. You can leave a comment below today if I got you thinking. The whole purpose of this show is to make you think. Because apparently I've got nothing but free time. That's all I do. Anyway, I've got one more story for you, and I promise I'll let you go. 6:50 p.m. my time. It's 1:50 in the morning, day 22 in Ukraine. We will pick up past this story tomorrow. Ukrainian President Volodomyrr Zelenskyy said that Russia's invasion of Ukraine could be the start of World War III. You don't say. Nobody knows whether it may have already started. I know. I've been telling you guys for 21 days. And what is the possibility of this war, if Ukraine will fall? In case Ukraine will. It's very hard to say, Zelenskyy says during his interview. And we've seen this 80 years ago when the Second World War started. Nobody would be able to predict the full-scale war would start or how it would begin. The Ukrainian leader's comments come as he urged the U.S. and other NATO countries to provide more assistance to Ukraine, with some being reluctant to do so in fear that it could spark an escalation with Russia that could lead to world war. Zelenskyy has called repeatedly for a no-fly zone over Ukraine, invoking Martin Luther King Jr. to make the case during his address to Congress. "I have a dream," he once said. "I can say, I have a need to protect the skies," he says. "I need your decision. I need your help," which is exactly the same. And the same you feel when you hear the words, "I have a dream." It is what it is. Whether you want to admit it or not, explain, or I wrote this to tell you, okay. We are a global society. Globalism is a good and bad thing. We are a global society now. The internet has made the world much smaller. Once upon a time, when Pwnery was a young adult, 19, 20, 21, when the internet was fledgling, he was looking for girlfriends within his city. The internet now gives you pen pals and mail order brides and all this other crap, right? And now I can say stuff like, "Kate Beckinsale hit me up." Whatever, right? The internet has made the world smaller because I can send a message to somebody halfway around the world within seconds. It doesn't feel tiny anymore, or the world doesn't feel vast anymore. You know, like you can. Now I'm farting around here. Imagine if I sent a PM to Kate Beckinsale and she said, "You have 12 hours to come to me now and take this offer." I can hop a plane and be there and live happily ever after. She's a Mensa woman. She's gorgeous. Why would I not want that, right? That would be like me reaching for a shooting star and catching it, right? The world got smaller because of the internet. We're also a global economy now, right? Everything is done globally. PayPal automatically does the financial, what's the word I'm looking for? Conversion for you, right? If I order something from Ivan the Bear Tactical out in Russia, I have his card right here. His website charges me in rubles. I pay through PayPal. PayPal automatically converts it to me in US dollars, right? You've all seen this. If you ever buy anything from Etsy or AliExpress or just whatever. Good examples, right? If I buy something from eBay.uk, like my FM12 gas mask that I ordered recently, it converts it for me. Global economy. The United States, since the advent of the Great White Fleet, after we had won the Spanish-American War, okay, before that, we were nothing. We were nobody. After we had won the Spanish-American War, we created the Great White Fleet. We took aging cruisers and battleships, dreadnoughts, we painted them up white, we put gold gilding on them, and we went on a goodwill tour, that's what we called it, and we sailed port to port all the way around the world, showing off, basically. Look at me! Look how great we are! We defeated the Spanish! Check out this armada! Don't fuck with us, but we're gonna be your friends! Right? We went on that tour. And because of that, we had become a global force in the world from that day forward. The world is involved. And there is a war going on right now. And it makes it a world war, whether you want to admit it or not. Globally, financially, emotionally, whatever. We're in it. Because we're part of it. Maybe we didn't send troops. Maybe we're not spilling our blood. We're sending the weapons, and those weapons are killing the enemy. We're in this. You'll never convince me of this otherwise. We are accessories to this, because we're all part of it. And when everyone starts to open their eyes and see that, then they'll finally know what to do about it. And with that, I'm going to play this. Because I have wasted 2 hours and 8 minutes of your time. Or maybe not. Maybe I actually had an impact on you. Maybe I made you think. And if I did, I'm very grateful that you took the time to spend with me and my panel today, who didn't have a whole lot to say. And I apologize if I sort of bulldogged you the entire time. Anyway, if you're new to my channel, welcome. If you're a regular here, welcome back. Either way, maybe check out my other playlists and see if my other interests might be of interest to you. Yeah, I'm a bit docile tonight because I knew I put it on way too heavy yesterday. My apologies if that offended you. Anyway, this was the War Room. This was day 21. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you tomorrow. Slava Ukraini.
Drink.